I remember the moment when the numbers started floating around 200 billion, 230 billion. Figures so large they almost stop meaning anything unless you anchor them to purpose. And when people ask me how xAI surged to that valuation so fast, I always say, it didn't surge at all. It was inevitable once you understand the trajectory. Because for me, this story didn't start with a balance sheet or a funding round. It started with a question that kept me awake at night. The same kind of question that drove me to rockets and electric cars, which is what happens when intelligence, the most powerful force in the universe, is no longer scarce and no longer human. And whether we guide it or let it guide us. And when I looked around at the AI landscape, I saw brilliance, but I also saw fear, secrecy, misaligned incentives, systems optimized for engagement instead of truth. And I thought that if we were going to build artificial general intelligence, then it had to be built in the open, rigorously, with physics-level honesty, something that actually tries to understand the universe rather than manipulate people inside it. So xAI was born from that first principle, not from a pitch deck, not from hype, but from a conviction that truth-seeking intelligence is the only kind worth scaling. And in the early days, people underestimated us because they thought starting late in AI was a disadvantage, but I've learned over decades that starting later means you see the mistakes more clearly, you can architect systems without legacy assumptions, you can recruit people who want to solve the hardest problems rather than just ship the fastest demos. And when we built Grok and the underlying models, we weren't trying to be polite or safe in the superficial sense. We were trying to be accurate, curious, sometimes uncomfortable, because reality doesn't care about our feelings, and that mindset resonated with users faster than anyone expected, especially once we integrated deeply with real-time data and platforms that operate at planetary scale. Because intelligence that can't see the world as it is right now is already obsolete. And as adoption accelerated, so did the realization among investors and institutions that xAI wasn't just another model company, it was becoming an intelligence infrastructure layer, something closer to an operating system for understanding reality. And valuations follow perceived inevitability more than current revenue. They follow the sense that a company is positioned at the center of a future that cannot be avoided. And when analysts started whispering about 200 billion or more, I didn't celebrate, I recalibrated, because a valuation like that is a responsibility. It means the world is betting that you won't flinch, that you'll keep pushing even when the incentives tell you to slow down and harvest. And what most people don't see is how much of xAI's value comes from the synthesis with everything else I've worked on. The feedback loop between rockets, cars, energy systems, social platforms, and now intelligence. Because AI trained in abstraction alone is brittle, but AI grounded in real-world physics, manufacturing constraints, human communication, and cosmic scale engineering starts to develop intuition. And that intuition is where the real breakthroughs happen. And as xAI scaled, talent flowed in, not because of the valuation, but because of the mission. People who could have gone anywhere chose to work insane hours because they understood we were racing not just competitors, but time itself. Racing the moment when AI becomes powerful enough that alignment is no longer a theoretical problem, but an existential one. And when you frame it that way, 200 billion is cheap because the upside isn't financial, it's civilizational. And yes, the markets see massive revenue potential in enterprise intelligence, autonomous agents, scientific discovery, defense, space. But internally we talk about something simpler, which is whether the systems we build help humanity understand the universe better tomorrow than it does today. And if the answer is yes, then the valuation will take care of itself. And if the answer is no, then no number is high enough. And so when headlines say, xAI surged to 200 or 230 billion, I smile a little, not because of the number, but because it signals that more people are starting to understand that intelligence aligned with truth is the most valuable asset you can build. And we're still at the beginning, still in the early innings, because once AI starts accelerating scientific discovery, once it meaningfully shortens the time between question and answer, between hypothesis and proof, the growth curves people are modeling today will look conservative. And my job, the only job that matters, is to make sure that growth bends toward understanding rather than control, toward curiosity rather than complacency. Because in the end, xAI isn't about beating anyone else. It's about making sure the future doesn't beat us. I also want to be clear about something people often miss when they talk about valuations and momentum. Because they assume it's all linear, like you add users, add compute, add capital, and the line just goes up. But the reality is much messier and much more interesting. Because the real inflection point for xAI wasn't when the valuation crossed some psychological threshold. It was when the system started surprising us in ways that weren't explicitly engineered. When models began forming connections across domains, physics to biology to economics. Not because we told them to, but because the underlying architecture and data exposure made it unavoidable. And that's when I knew we were no longer just building tools. We were cultivating an ecosystem of intelligence. And ecosystems compound faster than products ever could. And people ask whether 200 billion is sustainable, whether it's a bubble, whether it's hype. And I think that question reveals a misunderstanding of exponential systems. Because intelligence is the ultimate general purpose technology. It's electricity squared, it's fire with a feedback loop. And once you plug that into every sector simultaneously, the value creation doesn't happen sequentially. It happens all at once. And that's what markets are trying imperfectly to price in. And internally, we're still acting like a scrappy startup because complacency is the real enemy, not competition. And I constantly remind the team that every breakthrough we achieve raises the stakes, because more capability without more wisdom is how civilizations collapse. And that's why we obsess over alignment, not as a constraint, but as an accelerator, because a system you can trust is a system you can deploy everywhere. And a system you can't trust gets locked behind fear and regulation. And I've seen this pattern before with rockets and cars. People laughed until the curve bent. Then suddenly the question wasn't whether it would work, but how fast it would dominate. And AI is moving on an even steeper curve, which means mistakes propagate faster too. And that's why I spend so much time thinking about failure modes, about edge cases, about what happens when billions of humans interact with intelligence that never sleeps, never forgets, and never stops improving. And when investors assign a massive valuation, they're not just buying optionality. there buying faith that we're taking those questions seriously, that we're not optimizing for quarterly optics, but for long-term survivability. And what excites me most isn't the current generation of models, but the next ones. The ones that can reason across time, that can form long horizon plans, that can help us solve problems like sustainable energy abundance, interplanetary logistics, and curing diseases we still barely understand. Because once AI meaningfully accelerates science, the notion of valuation itself starts to break down. Since how do you price something that shortens the path from ignorance to knowledge? And I think in a few years, people will look back at these numbers and realize they were anchoring to old mental models. Because the real value of xAI is not that it answers questions faster, it's that it changes which questions we can even ask. And as that realization spreads, the story will shift from valuation surge to something closer to infrastructure emergence. And that's when things get truly interesting, because infrastructure is boring until it's indispensable. And once it's indispensable, it becomes invisible. And my goal is for xAI to eventually disappear into the fabric of civilization, quietly helping humanity make better decisions, explore further, and understand itself a little more clearly. And if along the way the valuation climbs to numbers that sound absurd today, that's just a side effect of building something that actually matters